when you say walk, I think
It's
we should talk
huge.
about that because I think that in America, a walk for autism means
Like
like
5K.
everyone gets in their
Right.
minivan, gets the same color T-shirt, maybe get some
Yeah.
stickers and some pom poms, and
Oh
they like
yeah.
walk through a park for an hour. Okay, and they high five each other and say, "Hey, we did one for the cause." You, on the other hand,
That, that's
are walking
usually what people do.
thousands
Yeah.
of kilometers,
Yeah.
right? Thousands of
Yeah.
With some
kilometers
camel
with
companions.
some camel
Camel
companions
companions.
across the
They
continent of
don't talk
Africa.
about camels.
Okay,
They
so I
put them
think
on
what
ships.
I think that it's
So
important that we do not downplay exactly what you're doing because you've already completed the Kenyan one, which was what 5 months, 2,000 kilometers.
no, that's the next one.
Oh, that's the
The
next one. I'm sorry.
yeah.
What's the one before that?
So I
Four hundred
did
fifty.
did one round Mount Kenya, which was 450 kilometers.
Got it.
And yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the normal thing, what normal people do, 10K through the park. And as you say, it's banners are hats. But me, on the other hand, I
Right.
decided to go full out and, do the long distance walk because I want to get to the rural communities, the impoverished communities, which often don't get that support and don't get that knowledge, understanding. Yeah.
So, could you
Sorry.
tell us a little bit about maybe give us a little bit of insight on the global perception of autism, or at least what autism is like in Kenya and maybe some of the African countries that you've been to?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
how is it? How it may be different from
So,
how we understand it?
so, um, so autism is still very unknown enough here. I mean, it's getting there slowly, but of course that's only limited to the big cities and the big towns, and where understanding and acceptance is a lot more. There's a lot more support there. But the
Yeah.
further into the more rural communities you go, um, autism is still looked at as um, something shameful, something to be ashamed of. There's something wrong with this child. There's something he's not normal. There's very much stigma and discrimination still, and that's pretty much a lot of the continent as well. I mean, of course, as time goes on, it's getting more known, but still, I mean, it's still pretty bad. I mean, I think you understand more, Ryan, as well, from your when you came over here, and
Yeah, I've had a limited experience going to a few places. One, for example, when I was over in Egypt, there uh, was a pretty clear lack of infrastructure for the majority of the population, despite your age. But it was
yeah,
really hard when you were entering adulthood. And my
definitely.
understanding,
I mean, adult services are non-existent almost. There's nothing for adults and higher education. It's all focused on children. So immediately, I guess people think when you turn 18, suddenly it disappears.
there's
Yeah,
this sense of like, oh, my understanding was like there was this perception of like, oh, it's no longer an issue that you carry with you anymore, or this part of your
yeah,
identity,
yeah.
and it was just
Yeah,
ignored by people that design services, or a part of the government and such. And then also my understanding was the family units actually, there's a lot of stigma around having a child with something like autism, and so oftentimes people just weren't leaving the house, like really ever,
definitely.
ever.
Definitely. There's that stigma, and there is you know, the family issues. Your mother must have done something back then, or it travels down from family issues. And yeah, as you say, there's so much kids being kept indoors all the time because of the dangers of you know them having nowhere to go, or neighbors' stigmatism, and yeah, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah, the Pan African event, there was, I mean, stories that people were sharing of people trying to uh, release demons, exorcisms, to
Oh
snake
yeah,
oil
yeah.
salesmen saying that if they did one or two things, they'd be able to cure it for life. Um,
It's
it's
hectic.
all
It
over the board.
really is. Mm, yeah.
And I would say the
And
organizers of that event were pretty good at trying to include everybody's perspective into there, highlighting that evidence-based practice was something that they were trying to move towards and highlight
yeah,
there. But there was a number of sessions that had tension because of this kind of conflict between evidence-based practice and then these other practices that we typically don't see, at least in America. If you hear about them, they're not necessarily the standard, or like you don't run into each other in professional contexts and conferences like that. So I remember a few
yeah,
things where, yeah, and like you can go your whole career, I feel like, as a behavior analyst, avoiding conflict if you really wanted to just stick into our own conferences and such, right? This place was kind of bringing everybody together.
yeah. No, that was awesome. It was a good conference. Yeah, such a shame we couldn't have it this year. It was meant to be in Ghana
Yeah.
this year. Yeah.
And so,
How have you how so speaking of this, like you mentioned some, like Brian just mentioned some of the tensions. How have you how has been reception with you just going around the country doing this kind of stuff? Like what
Um,
have you
I
been
get I get a mixed reaction,
yeah, tell me about it.
because so many people, see autism as classic autism or the more severe autism. So so I get a lot of I guess judgment. You don't look autistic. You can't be. You can do all this. It's having to explain that it's a spectrum, and trying to explain, the ins and outs, go right back to the beginning. And so I get a lot of that, but also I get a lot of people appreciate what I'm doing. And what I found towards the middle of the walk, people would actually come up to me and ask me, even before I got to the place, it's like, I know what you're doing. I have a child who's maybe not autistic, but cerebral palsy, that, different disabilities, and can you help? Can you give me advice? So I do what I can. Yeah. So
How
it's a wide mix of reactions.
how many communities did you visit?
Um, Quite a few. I mean, I passed through 5 um, big, well, not big, but biggish towns and little communities along the way. And the bigger towns, we give workshops, like intensive workshops with my partners who are uh, differently talented Society of Kenya, and ASEP, which is Special Education Professional, and they come up to where I am and we give a workshop, and we collaborate those with the EARCs, which is the Early Assessment Resource Centres here, which are provided for by the government, but of course they don't have, some are better than others, and some, so we give workshops with them and to parents. Parents can come and learn and get some tips and get some understanding and get some support. Yeah, so that's what we do.
That's fantastic. What kind so you just mentioned about the what was it called, ERA?
EARCs, the Early Assessment Resource Centres.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of access, like, so you mentioned you have some limited access to professionals. What do those people's expertise look like? What is their like education? And do you have behavior analysts working with folks?
We do have some behavior analysts here, but the folks I work with in the EARCs, some they get training, and some are very good at what they do, and so it's learning from each other. They can teach what we know we maybe don't know, and we can teach from, because the one my partner, the SEP, they're a group of professional therapists from Kenya and international, and so they can give a lot more support where it's needed.
Yeah, my understanding there was largely things like the BACB certification weren't recognized. There wasn't a licensure system. And so there was very much a just discussion and like struggle for finding qualified professionals, essentially, or knowing what you might be able to expect from somebody if they were going to do, because it was basically kind of seemed like there was centers that were out there that were just starting up or were looking to figure out how to fight the autism awareness and like get more funds to be able to build up into a larger movement. Then you had individual practitioners that had experience or a sibling or worked internationally somewhere for a little bit or had a degree. Like it was any of these sort of things, but there was nothing that was kind of the basis of like how our BACB exam set up to say these people know at least this much. So it was just very confusing for the consumer. It was easy to see that confusion was there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more with so much awareness coming out there now. There's so much so much of a need for stuff, but of course we don't have too much of that. So as you say, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of individual groups and
So I have a question. Let me know if it gets too personal, because we can edit out or step back. But what was it like for you growing up there with these sort of resources?
It was tough. Because back when I was a kid, people didn't know what I didn't know what it was. I was 13 when I was diagnosed. My mom took me to England to be diagnosed by the National Autistic Society, and so I got this diagnosis. I came back. I didn't know anything because reading my mom's books that she bought, they were written by professionals and doctors, and they had that doctor's talk. I couldn't relate to that. So it kind of became, that's not me. I can't have this. I always knew I was different, but somehow I just could not relate to these books. So it became, the secret you stuff in your closet and you don't talk about it and you don't really want to understand it, because growing up for me, I grew up in a world where it was shameful to have a disability. Being different was, as a kid, you so much want to fit in. I just never did. So it's always, I always knew it was different. So it was a shameful thing for me. So I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to accept it. I was 27 when I finally joined some groups on Facebook and really dove into really understanding what it was, understanding me, understanding my place in it. Yeah, I'm still learning. It's still a learning curve. I mean, 2 decades of hiding it, you don't just snap out of it. So I'm still learning, but I'm getting there, and I'm getting there.
I think one thing that from our first talk that I was really wanted to dive deep with you, and you already kind of mentioned it, was the idea that it's not a thing that you treat to get rid of, right? Because it's part of who you are.
Definitely, and that's something I learned when I started reading more into it. And because I had always, autism was always something that, I never really read too much into it before. And it was So it was very much, I don't want to go there, I don't want to talk about it. Maybe one day there'll be cure, but maybe if I forget about it, I can learn to blend in, I can, learn to be normal, whatever normal is. But as you say, yeah, I mean,
I think the impact of that, and like for our audience, and even from like some of the conversations that we've tried to have, is that, when we do the podcast and we talk to people like you, and I feel so great to have feel like you're such a great addition here, and I'm very much value and appreciate this conversation that you're having with us. I think that it highlights some of the problem with the language that we use, and I think it also highlights. Yeah, go ahead.
I definitely agree with you there. I mean, the language, from these books I read as a kid were all negative. You will have trouble doing this. You will have trouble doing this. Can't do this. Trouble. It's always problem. There's an issue. There's wrong. No. It's that language, and that's got to change.
I mean, it's. I teach a course for undergrad or first year master students, their first course in an ABA sequence, and there's so much talk about problem behavior and things like that, and it's like these are the little things where I'm trying to be like, think about the outcome of your words, think about the perspective of these sort of things, and
exactly right. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna if you grow up with that negative wording, you're gonna get a shit amount of low self-esteem, low self-worth. I went through all that. I mean, my depression was massive because a lot of that came from wording, and that wording affects how you feel about yourself.
And I've heard the term masking.
Oh yeah, masking is where you have to act normal, because the more weird you are, the more like I learned to mask very young. I mean, I had to. It was a survival thing for me, because I was bullied so much for doing little things that to me were fine, but to others was not so fine. So masking is literally putting on a mask and being someone you're not. And now the movement in the autistic community is remove the mask and just, this is who you are, accept it. And yeah.
I think from a professional perspective, the role that we play in the way that we deliver services, at least in the United States, I can't speak for Kenya or really any other country, in that we have very much pushed for this medical model that talks about that requires this thing called medical necessity in order to be eligible to access funds, that inherently forces people to talk about it as a disability, to think about it as a thing that you treat. And the thing is, when you treat a thing, that means that it's an inherent deficit and an inherent medical problem that potentially has a cure. There's an implied sense that's built into that framework that I think diminishes the reality of it, which is that any skill deficit or anything like that, any limitation that might come from it, I mean, when we're talking about skills and we're talking about behavior, we're really just talking about educational outcomes. We're really just talking about learning, right? So really, my whole thing with this and in talking to you was to say that, like, I think part of it is just we got to get out of this mindset where we're treating people with autism, and instead we're educating them just like we educate every other child. And we're helping them learn and build skills.
I think the negative thing definitely is everyone likes to put everyone in a box. You've got to be in a box to be able to be here or be there. But as you say, every person is different. You can't treat this kid the same as this, because they have different needs, and like we've just got to see the individual. You treat there's a thing saying treat individuals individuals, not neurotypes. Like
Sure.
treat that.
Yeah, people.
This
It
is
should be about people.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah. I mean, yeah, 'cause- yeah.
Yeah. It's difficult. It's the hard thing about this kind of topic I find is that like you just get people find themselves at odds with all the different types of stakeholders, all the different types of people that are trying to nudge a discussion because there's so much special interest going on across the board in every arena. Like you have medical perspectives, you have social science perspectives, you have the actual perspectives of the people who are in that situation. You have funders who are pushing for certain things because they don't want to spend money on anything. So you have all these different people fighting for a narrative, and it seems that at times it gets usurped and taken out of people's hands. And when it's just the easiest way to do it is to just take a step back and say, okay, like, am I treating a disease? No. Right? I'm treating a person. Well, am I really treating a person, or am I helping them learn things? I'm helping them learn things. So for me, like, I just believe in eliminating that from the vernacular. And I wish that at least in American society, we could get away from this notion of medical necessity and medical, it diagnosed as a medical clinical problem, because that's not what it is. It's part of how someone is and who they are, and
Exactly.
helping them navigate the world. That's
exactly. Look at the individual and not the label and help the individual side and not exactly.
So you mentioned that you finally at 20. How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
37 now.
37. Oh, we're the same age. 83.
Okay.
What up? But so like you said, you finally joined some Facebook groups at 27. How has it been like finding community and building community and that kind of thing for you?
In Kenya, or did you mean
online?
In any way.
Oh,
in
online.
Any way.
So I joined. I joined this group when I was 27. It was a female group, women with autism. Sorry, I keep saying Asperger just because people don't hear.
Tomato.
Well, exactly. But so I joined this group, and it was literally life-saving. I mean, I don't know how they kicked me out, though. I asked tons of questions, like stupid questions. But they answered them all, and I gained new friends. My Aspi sisters, they're still like family to me. I mean, it's been a couple of years now, but we still communicate, we still talk, and they literally were a lifesaver to me. They made me understand myself more. They made me see, the positives of this, and they made me see that there's no one set way to be, which the books had always told me, that you have to be this. It's the box mentality, and being able to communicate with other people who got me and who understood me. It was literally, it was life saving. I'm not weird or freaky. I'm not. This is who I am.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't imagine. There's when I was going through my graduate training to be a behavior analyst, I stumbled into an article and some discussions around perspective taking, and it ended up being just really interesting to me. And I spent a ton of time trying to learn about teaching those sort of skill sets. And part of that was because I think in order to help someone teach a skill, or teach someone a skill, or just whether it's psychology or these different, I guess, helping professions, you've got a little bit, as best as you can. I don't think you do it perfectly, obviously, but I need to somewhat put myself in your shoes, right? Someone else's shoes, try to understand what's going on a little bit. And kind of hindsight, putting this all together, like my interest in it, watching the self-advocates like yourself and other movements that are going on with like actually autistic, I realized like I never, as a behavior analyst in training, spent time with people that were self-advocating and like discussing topics like this with me. Like this would have been a fantastic conversation to have prior to ever even considering getting to a field of a helping profession, right?
And that's a topic that's brought up in many of these groups. I mean, I'm more of a silent observer in many of these groups. You know, I'm by the wall watching. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. You know, these, you know, behavioral, and this is, I guess, where the negative aspect of ABA comes in with these groups, because there seems to be such miscommunication between the two. And, you know, yeah, there's such a...
I think the first step, it would have been, like if I could redo it, I would have spent time trying to figure out how to put myself in situations where I could listen to more people that were diagnosed with autism. And this goes for any potential, like if I was working in psychology with different labels, disorders, like the same thing. It's just so valuable to hear it from the other side. And it was years before I really worked with people that were very articulate in their language and could start describing things. And even then, you're still so much like, I'm here to serve the role of helping out for this. It's not necessarily valued in the system of like, I'm also here to learn and bring those in.
Definitely. I think that's a very good point. We have to learn from each other, you know, and I learn from you guys, you learn from me. You know, it's a two-way street. We have to learn and respect from each other. And as you say, this conversation should have been started ages ago. Because maybe there wouldn't be such a wide gap between the two.
I think where it started making sense for me, and this was like admittedly years and years, probably 5, 6, 7 years of working in the field, was I worked with adults, moved into working with younger children, over a lot of different disabilities, primarily emotional behavioral disorder, oppositional defiant disorders, who I was working with at the time. And then when I came back into working with adults, it was, I'd learned just how much of a connection I could make through just language and getting to know somebody with that population. And then sitting in some of what they call these team meetings, which are quarterly meetings where everybody gets together, all stakeholders that are involved with some adults service, and just watching essentially everybody communicate except for the person that was actually there receiving services. And that's where it was like, holy shit, this is messed up, right? I'd watch people talk down like why a goal shouldn't be a goal. I would have people go so far as saying like, you're not skilled enough to be able to do that. Like you should probably set your goals lower. Like there was shit that was going on in these meetings where it's like, I wanted to, I don't know. Like I just was like, I did not want to work with some of the people that were like in the local areas, like stakeholders offering services. It was just absurd. And luckily the organization was realized how important that was. And we did really, an overhaul for about 2.5 years of trying to really make sure that those things were the most comfortable, and we listened primarily to that person that was advocating there. And like I said, like in hindsight, it's not taken seriously all the time. And the perspective taking is, I feel like, one way to just start getting a taste of,
definitely. You know? And now I think things are moving, especially in the autism world, with self-advocates. You know, back when I was a kid and growing up, there was nothing, and now there's so much blogs, videos, everything, so much from self-advocates, and we can all learn from each other. And I just think we need to come together and, you know, stop this divide and stop this hatred and stop this bitching. And it just gets to me. It really gets to me. So, yeah.
What's your perception of behavior analysis, or what kind of perception do you get from, you know, your friends in the community?
From the autistic community, there's a lot of it's a don't shoot messenger.
No, this is touchy subject.
This is what we want to hear.
This is exactly what we want to hear. we want you to feel comfortable sharing and what our field needs to be listening to as well.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So I got a few notes. So they look at it as a, say, I don't like to start it, but
This
so
is a
people,
controversial exchange. We talked about this. You can say whatever you want.
I love it. I love when I can swear.
You can say
We've
whatever
got
you
you
want.
back too.
Yes. So many of the advocates look at ABA as a bad thing because it's teaching a child to, sit or, take a pen or whatever, and it's being told without consideration of their feelings. Maybe they don't want to sit. Maybe at that point they don't want to, and it's problems will with consent in either child life or later in life. And I have read some testimonials from autistics who have gone through ABA and training who are, and affected by that later in life. And there's also there's too much. It's too much focused on eliminating behavior. Like forcing eye contact, stimming, teaching these kids or these young adults that the way they are is wrong, and they should be. It's if a kid wants to stim, let them stim. It's a way of regulating. It helps. I still stim, but that forced stopping them doing that is quite a touchy subject to discuss.
As it should be.
So it basically forces the teaching of masking.
Forces the teaching of masking. It forces the that an individual has to be this way and has to, fit into normal society without, and to the detriment of who they are. That's.
I mean, I think that if you don't mind, I'm not going to speak for you. I just want to clarify some of your comments for the audience because I think that helps. If you don't mind me expanding.
No, please. I'm giving you some of.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of it. I think what you're describing and what I'm getting from that is there's a problem with compliance skills. It's like we call them compliance skills in our field, but really what we're talking about is submission skills, right? And in that leads to this dynamic of, these power dynamics of dominance over another human being because part of the expectations getting set is that regular kids sit nicely and listen to their teacher and do what they're told. When in reality, I can speak for myself, I was an oppositional little shit. Like I am still a monster. So I mean, like the idea that anyone could possibly try to control me without getting absolutely explosive level reactivity in some capacity, like it's inevitable. So the idea of like programming for that as a part of it is ridiculous. Now that's not to say that there's not balances to be found. I think in order teaching people how to function and that kind of thing. But
definitely, I think there's pros and cons to it all. And
absolutely.
I'm not saying we should not, especially
I don't think so.
self-harm behavior.
Oh, exactly.
That, that's where,
Yeah, but then like self-stimulation, like I can't tell you how much. I mean, like every single person engages in self-stimulatory behavior.
Definitely.
Like I twirl my hair. I'm 37 years old. I'm a grown man that's still. I have to keep my hair short because I twirl my
curls.
Why
don't you try to twirl it? Like while we're recording this podcast.
I do too.
Yeah. So I mean, like it's like a neurotic thing that I'm. So if I have to do that and I have no issues like that? You know, like what's it feel like to be somebody else who does have those things going on, or even a stronger compulsion to engage in that behavior, and then look at that generalized across a particular community population, and then we program against it. Are we programmed to suppress that in whatever capacity? Which basically means you're programming someone to act against an ongoing itch. Like, how
Exactly.
fucked up is that if you really think about it, right? Like,
Exactly.
you're kind of like,
It's telling someone don't do that because that's
right.
normal, but it's something we still do. I mean, I still stim. It does help me relax. Of course, I can't. Like my stim is a natural rubbing hands, but I can't do that in public. So you find ways. Like I wear rings, bracelets, 12 those year round. Find ways that I can still do it, but doesn't quite, get everyone staring at me. So it's
Do you think now that you're slowly getting more comfortable with who you are, and you're kind of getting a little bit more, you're on the move, you're out there, you're speaking, you're saying, you're becoming more of a person, a persona, like,
yeah.
is that, do you feel like, how does that pressure impact your ability to function on a day-to-day basis?
I'm definitely getting better. I'm definitely more understanding and accepting myself, and I'm still on the road to acceptance. But I'm getting there. I'm learning more. I'm understanding more, and it's done wonders. If I didn't have that awareness and that understanding, I would never have done something like this project. I mean, I swore I would never tell anyone about it.
What made you want to do this particular project? Like, what were we like? I'm gonna walk across a continent. Fuck it. That's where I'm going with this.
Exactly. Go big or go home. Hey?
That's right. I like that.
It all starts from a book. I read tracks. I don't know if you guys.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, can you tell us about it?
That. Yeah, it's a woman who walked across the Australian desert with camels. And because this was in the 70s, and she wrote a book called Tracks, Robin Davidson, which has recently been made into a movie.
Cool.
Excellent movie, by the way. But yeah, I read that. And before that, I'd read one called On Foot Through Africa by Fiona Campbell. And she walked without camels, but through Africa. And it just, I love trekking anyway. I love walking. I love being in nature. It's walking is my way of meditation. I cannot sit and meditate. And my brain it doesn't have a fucking off switch. My brain, it's always on the go, always. Yeah. So that is a kind of relief for me.
Does it kind of shut off during that walk?
Yeah, it shuts off. Yeah, I can be walking for like an hour or 2 hours and not think anything. And when you step out of it, you're like, wow, okay, that was awesome. So it's a good regulation for me. It's good, and I want to see more of Africa. This is the most underrated continent on earth, I think, and we have amazing cultures here, and it's with everything moving so fast, it's disappearing a bit, and I want to see it before it's ugly. And what better way to see a place than walk it, interact with the people, and not just turn up in a car, and be a white savior, a white savior type.
Right.
Which I'm very aware of, and Africa is a big. I read tons of books on the subject. I love it. But again, you find all these well-intentioned NGOs and all this, but they come in a car, they dictate to people what to do, and then they go away. walking gives kind of a personal level. And because autism is such a personal thing, it makes sense to do it personal and connect with people on a one-to-one basis. And because I want to mainly aim the project at the rural impoverished areas, that's gonna bring me a level closer to connect with people.
Yeah, for anyone considering like the size and scope of this, are you trying to walk north to south, east to west? Do you have like a defined path of which you're going?
From central Kenya to the south.
Okay.
So that's 5 months and 2,000 kilometers.
5 months, 2,000 kilometers. I believe you can fit the contiguous U.S., China, India, and almost all of Europe into the size of Africa alone. Like it's so hard to take the perspective of just how massive that continent is.
Yeah, Africa is a huge continent. I mean,
It's gigantic.
And so, can you describe the name of maybe how what's the name of your Instagram and kind of what do you do on there day to day? Can you maybe describe some of that?
Yeah. So my Instagram is I'll send it to you so you can link it. But it's Hobby Walking Autism, and on Facebook it's just called Walking Autism.
And what are some of the walks you've done so far? I know we kind of talked about this.
So, yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping through things.
No, it's okay.
So the first one was a week. That was in 2014. That was just a week walk from up north walk to where I live now, which is Nanyuki. So that was the short one. And the one around the mountain was a month, and that was 450 kilometers. And the next one is the one I'm working on now. But I'm still working on sponsors, and it's tough because now with this pandemic, it's put me off as well. I have to put it off for another year, or I don't know how long it'll be. But also, it's what's really freaking me out now. It's the the economy everywhere is in tatters. Who's going to want to give money to me when that money could go to humanitarian relief or something that's more worthwhile? Who's going to want to sponsor me now? So it's kind of I'm still working on it. I'm still working on stuff, but it's another worry now. Like it's another thing on top of the shoulders, if that makes sense.
Would you be comfortable sharing like what sort of sponsorships or resources do you need to be able to make something like this happen? Like, what are you trying to chase down?
So the total budget is two million shillings. Like it's 20,000 American dollars, I think it is. I have to check my stuff, but I mean, it's not. I've talked about the amount with other people, and they say, "Oh, that's not too much," which to me it sounds ridiculous because it's a huge amount. But when you compare it with what other people ask for, yeah, I have to admit it's not.
No, it's definitely relative. Yeah, I was curious, and is this like, do you have, so I've done a few longer like relay races that are 100 or 200 miles long.
Yeah.
Do you have support? Is this like helping people with like support stations for you along the way? Like this has got to be a lot to plan as well, right?
Oh yeah, it's the logistics, it's the camels, it's the food, it's the guides, it's it's so much when you pick out little bits, and of course the team coming in to give these workshops, they're part of the sponsorship. It includes so many little things. little things that, you may not think is relevant, but actually is quite relevant
Yeah.
to the trip.
I mean,
And
it sounds like, a sponsorship like this is for a great cause, great person, but you're with the workshop components in there, like it's going to more than just those things, right?
definitely, I mean, this is, and that's, I think, what people do confuse this with when I explain to them about the project, because so many people like to see something tangible, I built a school, there's a school, I sponsored a school being built, there it is. But with me, it's not building anything tangible, but it is, I mean, I'm not, how can I say this?
I think you're
So,
underestimating what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think you are building something, and that's what I think. I think hopefully we can help you articulate that a little bit so that you can get the sales pitch down. But you're not producing a building, and that's okay. We'll talk later. But like you're not producing a building. You're not producing, but you are producing culture change. You're producing you're producing knowledge. You're producing an understanding. You're producing community. You're bringing about opportunity for people to expand outside of themselves and see a world through a different lens and understand an entire segment of a population that is heavily neglected in a big part of the world, if not geographically the largest part of the world, sequentially in the single continent. So I think that like
memorize that. You just summed it up.
So I think
She's good at
that's how that's my special talent, I think. But I mean, like that's so like don't if I can give you some advice, I think that you are such a humble person, and I think that what you've been presenting here is a really wonderful example of someone who's been very self-perceptive and self-evaluative and has had to work through a lot of stuff. But I think that what that brings about sometimes is the inability to grasp and articulate the successes that you have in the world, right?
Mm.
And I think that when you walk 450 miles, on camels, in the middle of a continent, that says something about who you are. And then when you want to expand that project, to 4 times as big, that continues to say a lot about who you are and what you believe in. So I think that should be the focus. And I think that honestly, I think you're underselling what it is and what it can do, because, we have a responsibility to the world to bring about substantive change in terms of like actually things that work,
Definitely. I love what you said, and I need to memorize that because I've had so much put downs, and why are you doing this? And will this work? And different thoughts along this whole project by people I've talked to. So I guess, and the struggle of getting it all going, it kind of pulls you down a bit. So I do need to. As Demetrius, you say, don't underestimate it, and because I am giving something that will last a lifetime.
I think the biggest thing is that we live in a world of a lot of keyboard warriors and social media activists. I think it's pretty easy to be loud behind a computer screen, and I'm guilty of it. Okay. I think it's a lot more real to get off of your ass, put on your shoes, lace them up, and go. And be out in the world, in nature, where wind and cold and rain and heat can blast you, and where you're around actual other human beings, you know what I mean? And put yourself in that position to have a tangible, real sensory experience, that actually is attempting to change things. That's real. That's not bullshit.
And I've always wanted to do something to change the world. I mean, all my role models in life have been people who've done stuff, not just sat on their ass and typed behind, or but but I always wanted to do something to bring change, and to me this is the most practical way of doing it, that reaches so many people that otherwise would not have.
Well, I can't imagine how life-changing it is for some of the people in those communities to get that information, to meet you, to learn to feel that judgment taken off their shoulders.
Definitely. It's very humbling. I mean, the people I have met and been able to connect with and communicate with, and it's very humbling. That's what drives you forward. When it's pissing down with rain, when you're walking in mud, when you're feeling like shit, that's what pushes you on. That being able to change someone's life, change someone's outlook, the same that these women in this chat group did for me. So it's not saving anyone; it's empowering people, and that's the same way I was empowered.
Hell yeah. Such a great goal. And
So people can donate they can go to the website and donate, walkingautism.co.ke.
Okay, I've got a Go Get Funding page, which I've set up as sponsor a kilometer. And yeah, and
They can sponsor.
They can sponsor by a kilometer, and I'll walk it.
Nice. Very nice.
But yeah, everything's there. Yeah, I'm really trying to get this thing up and going again. I mean, it's all this waiting, of course, now with COVID, it's kind of, set me back a bit emotionally as well.
I'm sure.
So I've just got to do what I can to keep things going, to keep positive. It's so easy to just fall back into depression, and I've been there, and it's a shit place to be. So I'm doing everything I can to avoid, getting into that space again. And this project has done that for me, has given me something to work towards, to really be excited about, to use my story in a way that I can help others, or just change some perceptions, or just whatever I can do, just teach. I want to be able to, I want to break barriers that I had to get through. But if I break them, no kids in the future will have to break them. It's making the world better for the kids who will grow up tomorrow.
Well, I think your story is fantastic. I think you're really inspirational, and I'm rooting for you. Do you have a timeline? How, obviously, COVID has put a absolute hamper on anything everyone wants to do. Assuming everything goes well with COVID, what's your hopeful timeline?
I'd love to get it done by next year. I mean, whether that will work or not, I don't know. But COVID, is really a bummer. It's put everything back. But yeah, I'd love to get it done by next year. I'd love to just because it's not just Kenya. I mean, Kenya is just the start. I do want to take this across Africa, across the continent.
If people go to the website, your walks are awesome. Like the walks you have mapped out, they are escalating. They escalate. So the next one is 2,000, and then there's this one is like, I don't know, it looks like triple that size. And
so
then
I've got Kenya, which if all goes well, would be done next year. Then I've got East Africa, which is Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda. I probably got that all mixed up, but and then there's across the equator, and then there's the full one, the full Africa.
So if people want to see those, they can go and actually look at the entire mapped out walks that she has planned over the next lifetime. But I mean, hopefully in the next 6-8 months, you'll be starting on the next one, and that
would be incredible. Great. I mean, I feel comfortable out there doing that. I often say to people, I don't feel at home anywhere. My home is on the road. I love traveling. I love moving from place to place. And packing up the camera every day and putting up a tent. It gets tedious, but hey, it's the life I chose. And
Yeah.
I love it.
Is the camel yours, or do you guys rent it?
So I have a camel.
That's so cool.
Which unfortunately won't be able to join me in the next walk, as he's hurt his leg. But I am looking at buying 2 more camels and training them and using them.
Such a different
I
world.
love camels. Camels get
So
such a
cool.
bad reputation, but they're actually the most gentle creatures.
Really?
And horse people might shoot me for this, but then they're more intelligent than a horse.
I love it.
They are so incredible, gentle. They're just big, and that's where the intimidation comes.
They're really
very
big.
intimidating. Because and that's the intimidation. Yeah, but no, they're gentle. They're just plod along. They're cool. They put up with all my endless chatter and myself. They don't talk back.
The best kind of companion.
Exactly.
The best kind.
Yeah. No, they're chill. They're awesome, and they're practical to walk with and to do this kind of stuff with.
That's super cool. Count us in, Team TCE, on throwing down some kilometers to sponsor, and I hope everybody else out there can look into that and help. Just a kilometer. That's it. We're asking for a kilometer. Help out such a great cause and mission. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of talk about today?
Awesome.
There's about 1,000 people that listen to this on a weekly basis. If
serious?
half of you donate 1 kilometer, we'll get
Yeah,
it.
that's it.
That's it.
It's that simple.
That would be awesome.
Think about that.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. And thank you.
Was there anything that we didn't
Thank
hit
you,
that
Abby.
you wanted to touch on real quick?
No, I think we pretty much got it all.
Okay.
Unless there's anything you guys wanted to add.
No, just a gratitude.
Grateful.
Thank you so much for coming up and doing this.
Oh,
And it
My
was lovely
pleasure.
talking to you.
Nice.
it was really cool. Thank you.
This was marvelous.
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 Marvelous. Fantastic.